All right, so today, let's dive into something I know a lot of English learners struggle with, understanding native speakers. You're working hard, you're studying grammar, you're learning new words, and then you get into a real conversation, and it's like, what happened to all the rules?
It really is different, isn't it? It's like the classroom versus the real world.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. You think you're making progress, and then it's like, wait, are they even speaking English?
Right. And the research you sent really highlights that, like, how native speakers sound, the speed, how we blend words together, and just the expressions we use. It can be a lot.
Okay, so let's break this down. We've got some fascinating research here to help us unpack why native speakers can sound so fast, and more importantly, what can we actually do about it?
Well, one of the biggest things is this idea of connected speech, which I think is so cool. It's not just that we talk fast, it's that we actually kind of like smush words together.
Like that whole, what are you doing? Turns into what you and doing.
Exactly.
It's like a whole other language.
And it can be super confusing if you've learned English in a more structured way, where each word has its place. But the source suggests that if you actually try to mimic this connected speech when you're practicing, you can train your brain to recognize those patterns.
So instead of fighting against the natural flow, we should just kind of lean into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the research also talks about slang and informal expressions. Like there's this whole other vocabulary that you won't really find in a textbook.
Yeah, it really is like having this secret code. And it's not just the individual words, it's the whole way we shorten things, the tone, the feeling.
So is it like, are native speakers being lazy?
No, not at all. It's more about efficiency.
Okay.
And it's how language naturally evolves, Like if you think about it, informal speech is how people actually talk in real life. And it makes it sound more natural and helps us connect with each other.
Right. So to understand it better, do we I don't know, I just need to watch a lot more TV.
That's a great place to start, yeah. Like dive into movies, TV shows, podcasts, things where you can hear people having natural conversations.
Okay, so less Shakespeare, more Netflix.
Exactly.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
And speaking of things that sound different, the source also mentions something called reduced or dropped sounds, which can make it sound like words are disappearing.
Wait, what?
Well, it's not that dramatic, but it can sound that way. Think about the phrase I would have a native speaker would probably say something like, I dunna. We just do it naturally to be quicker.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Like the words are in a hurry or something.
Exactly. And one way to get better at hearing these reduced sounds is by using technology. Like a lot of language learning apps and websites will let you slow down the audio, but without changing the pitch, so it doesn't sound robotic.
Oh, so it's like hitting the slow motion button, but just for the audio?
Exactly. And then as you get better, you can gradually speed it up until you can understand even those fast talkers.
Okay, I like that.
Now, one more thing to think about. It's not just speed that can be tough. It's also all the different accents out there, like British, American, Australian. It can be overwhelming.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I can imagine, even if you're pretty good at English, hearing a new accent for the first time, it's like starting over again.
It can feel like that.
Yeah.
So any tips for navigating this accent jungle?
Well, the source really emphasizes exposure, like listening to lots of different accents, movies, TV shows, podcasts, music.
Right. It's like giving your ears a workout. The more you hear these different accents, the more your brain starts to get used to the sounds and recognize the patterns.
Oh, wait, if that makes sense.
Now, beyond all this, there are some practical things we can all do to become better listeners in general. And I think this is really valuable because it's not just about English, it's about communication.
Absolutely. So what are some of those things?
Well, the first thing is being an active listener. This means really engaging with whoever you're listening to, paying attention to their tone, their body language, all the context.
So it's about being present, not just letting the words go in one ear and out the other.
Exactly. The source recommends using transcripts alongside audio recordings. So you can try listening first without the transcript, then go back with the transcript and see what you miss.
Oh, that's smart. Like having subtitles for real life.
Yeah. Another tip is to take notes. Jot down key words, phrases you don't understand, anything to make it more active.
Okay, so taking notes and using transcripts. What else?
We already talked about slowing down audio, but there's another cool technique called shadowing. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, I have. It's like you're trying to become the speaker's shadow.
Yeah.
You listen to a little bit and then you repeat it, trying to mimic the sounds as closely as you can.
Yes. And it can be a little challenging at first, but it's so effective because it forces you to process the language quickly and pay attention to the details that we often miss.
That's fun.
It is fun. I love shadowing. Now, another important thing is using context clues, which I think is really how native speakers understand things, even when we don't hear every word.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Think about it. Even in our own language, we don't always catch every single word, but we understand because we're using the context around that word.
That's so true.
Right. So instead of getting stuck on individual words, try to focus on the big picture. What is the main idea?
It's like looking for the forest instead of getting lost in the trees.
Yeah. And if there's a word you don't know, don't run to the dictionary right away. Try to figure it out from the context around it.
Okay.
Now, another strategy is to just immerse yourself in authentic content, like real world stuff, like news reports, podcasts, movies, anything that shows you how English is used naturally.
But it's got to be stuff we enjoy, right? Like, it's not going to work if I'm bored out of my mind.
Right. So find things that you're actually interested in, and then it becomes so much more fun. And speaking of things that are important, we can't forget vocabulary. I think that's the foundation for everything.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The more words you know, the easier it is to understand what people are saying, right?
Right.
It's like having more pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. But don't just learn words from lists, learn them in context.
So like reading, listening, watching videos.
Yeah, pay attention to how words are used in sentences and in conversations. Now, the source makes one last really important point, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed by all these strategies.
Okay.
It's all about pacing yourself. Don't try to do everything at once. Start with easier material and work your way up.
Oh, so don't try to run a marathon before you can walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Start with something that's just a little bit challenging, and then as you improve, you can level up.
I like that.
So what would be some examples of this? I mean, what should people actually listen to? So like, what are some good examples? What should people start listening to?
Yeah, because just saying listen to easier stuff, that's not very helpful.
Right.
We need specifics.
Well, the source mentioned TED Ed videos, which I think are fantastic.
Yeah, TED Talks.
They're educational, often about really interesting topics,
Yeah.
but they're presented in a way that's pretty easy to understand.
Okay.
And a lot of them have subtitles and transcripts and even vocabulary explanations, so it's kind of like built-in support for language learners.
Perfect. What about podcasts? Those seem good for listening practice.
Podcasts are fantastic for immersion.
Yeah.
And you can find podcasts specifically made for English learners where they use simpler language, maybe speak a little slower.
Right.
Some of them even have transcripts or vocabulary lists.
That's awesome. So you can kind of build up your confidence.
Exactly.
Get used to different accents and ways of speaking before you jump into the really challenging stuff.
Right. And then as you get better, you can start listening to podcasts that are made for native speakers.
And there are so many podcasts out there. You can find one on literally any topic you're interested in.
There really is something for everyone.
So it's like having a personal radio station full of learning opportunities.
I love that. And you can listen anytime while you're commuting or working out or cooking.
Yeah. It's like sneaking in a little bit of language practice without even trying.
Exactly. And I think that's really the key, finding ways to make listening practice a part of your everyday life. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right.
It can be something you actually look forward to.
So we've covered a ton of strategies today, everything from mimicking connected speech to immersing ourselves in real-world content.
Yeah,
I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. And hopefully our listeners are feeling a little bit more confident and ready to tackle these challenges and really improve their listening skills.
And I think it's important to remember that it's okay to struggle,
Yeah.
especially if you're still learning English.
Well, for sure. It's all part of the process.
Yeah, like it's normal to feel frustrated sometimes.
Right. It's a journey and there will be ups and downs.
Right.
But the key is to not give up. Just keep practicing.
To be persistent.
Yeah. And remember that every little bit of effort you make really does add up.
Even just a few minutes every day.
Exactly. And it's also important to celebrate those little victories. Like anytime you understand a new word or a phrase or a whole conversation that you couldn't understand before,
Oh, yeah.
that's a big deal. Celebrate that.
It's like, leveling up in a video game.
Yes. It shows you that all that hard work is paying off.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what's one big takeaway that our listeners should remember from this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is just that improving your listening comprehension, it's a journey.
Yeah.
There's no magic bullet or quick fix. It takes time and effort
And the right strategies,
And the right strategies, yes.
which we've given them a bunch of today.
We have. But the good news is it's totally possible. And the benefits are incredible. Being able to understand native speakers, I mean, that opens up a whole new world.
It really does.
Right. You can watch movies without subtitles.
Yes.
You can understand music. You can have conversations with people from all over the world.
That's the dream.
It is. It's really transformative.
Yeah.
And it can give you so much more confidence to keep learning and growing.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Try different things. Find what works best for you.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
Right. There's this whole community of English language learners out there who are all going through the same things and supporting each other.
It's like we're all in this together.
We are. So we're so glad you're here with us on this journey. Now, before we finish up, we have a little challenge for you.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
A challenge.
Yeah.
I like it. What is it?
Well, we've talked about so many different strategies today for improving listening comprehension.
We have.
So we want to challenge you to pick one.
Okay.
Just one of those strategies and really focus on it for the next week.
Ooh, I like that. Make it actionable.
Yeah. So choose one, whether it's active listening or shadowing or using context clues or anything else that really resonated with you.
Yeah.
And make a conscious effort to practice that strategy every day for the next 7 days.
Every day.
Even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
The important thing is consistency.
So at the end of the week, we should take some time to reflect.
Yes.
Did we notice any improvement?
Right. What worked well? What was challenging?
Yeah.
And how can you adjust your approach for the following week?
It's like a little experiment.
It is.
You're not just learning about listening, you're actually shaping your own learning process.
Exactly. And this isn't just a 1-week challenge.
Right.
This is the beginning of a lifelong journey of language learning.
I love that.
And we're here to support you every step of the way.
So are you ready to take on the challenge?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's like we're giving all the tools and then it's up to you to kind of build your own path.
Exactly. And that actually makes me think, you know, we've talked about how to get better at listening, but does the type of stuff you listen to matter? Like, does it make a difference if you're listening to a news report versus like a comedy podcast?
That's interesting. Like, does listening to something really challenging, like a fast-paced political debate, actually help you learn faster than listening to something more relaxed, like a storytelling podcast?
Right. It probably depends on your learning style and what you're trying to achieve. Maybe some people actually learn better from those tougher conversations, even if they're harder to follow at first.
That makes sense. Like, there's no one right way to do it.
This deep dive has given us so many great strategies, but it's up to each person to find what works best for them.
I agree. So as you're trying out that listening challenge this week, think about what you're listening to. What really grabs your attention? What makes you want to keep listening?
Ooh, I like that. It's like a fun experiment.
Yeah. And you might discover some new favorite podcasts or shows along the way. Exactly. And that's what I love about these deep dives. It's not just about learning something new. It's about getting inspired to explore more.
Well said. So until next time, keep those ears open. Stay curious and happy listening.
Happy listening, everyone.